Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. Today I'm going to talk about deception in the churches and why battle lines are being drawn all across the nation. So let's start first with the battle lines, okay? When you have people who are openly talking, even on Fox News, about the inevitability of civil war, and you hear common talk at the cashier's register, and you hear conversations at Little League games that are not even excited anymore, but just fatalistic about it's coming. We're ready. Just a match going to strike this thing off. It's a tinderbox. You know it. You've heard it. If you're paying attention, we've all heard it. The thing is, unfortunately, I think people have lost their edge in a way because they've heard this talk for years. And it's almost like the tornado warning phenomenon. You know, people, in Tornado Alley for years, many times, the local news services would say that people wouldn't even heed the tornado warnings anymore. And then lo and behold, when they have a massive F4 or an F5, okay, this thing is just coming to destroy and stuff. And people don't heed the warnings anymore because they've heard them so often. They think that it won't happen. And unfortunately, that's what's happening right now with a lot of people. A lot of people are not, though. A lot of people are watching and they're seeing and they're putting the signs together and like, storm clouds are coming. It's here. It's on the horizon. I see it. But a lot of people are asleep at the wheel. The reason they're asleep at the wheel is twofold. Number one, their man is in office, and so they think because the president's in office that everything is safe. Number two, they think that everything is well because their churches are telling them that everything is well. I want to move on the vein of the churches for a second here. Steadily, really since about the 50s and 60s, we have seen infiltration by communist elements into the church. And what's really sad is that I say this and nobody's shocked. There's no feeling anymore. People are numb to it. Oh yeah, the communists are in the churches. Oh yeah, the socialists have got the pulpit now. World Council of Churches is doing all their stuff. Yeah, whatever. No big deal. No news. No cause for alarm. Churches, especially in denominations that were considered previously safe, are moving to the point now where they are, and I have to be careful, of course, what I say because of YouTube's community guidelines. Just know that I'm coming to you from a platform that's already censored. But you know exactly what I'm talking about. Denominations that have completely turned their back on Scripture. Denominations that now are celebrating things that are a clear abomination in Scripture. And also, denominations that are willing to rewrite the gender of God so that it can be more inclusive. Although they'll leave the Lord's Prayer aside. Don't believe me? I'll put a link in the description box below. The churches at this point have been corrupted. There are a few of them that are holdouts, but the ones that are going to build their foundation on the rock, they're rare. And the reason why the church is hemorrhaging people in the United States is not because they're not with it or they don't have enough programs or freaking PowerPoint presentations or worship rock concerts. That ain't it. The reason why they're hemorrhaging members is because they're not teaching the truth anymore. Some people would argue that they never did. However, the bottom line is that more and more the churches are moving away from immutability of Scripture and they are trending more towards prevailing cultural trends. And for this reason, they are telling people not to worry, to go along with boycott, divest, sanction, to go along with whatever the pro-LGBT community, whatever it is right now. Probably very soon, these 501c3s are going to get their statuses revoked for discriminating against people based on sexual orientation. And it is what it is. That's coming. And so I have to ask you a question here, and maybe you have to ask yourselves a question if you're involved in a church. Do you think that your church is going to mute itself in order to keep its 501c3 status? A lot of people are. There are churches now that are even instituting no weapons policies. Churches in previously safe denominations. So folks, in this nation right now, we've got battle lines that are being drawn. Actually, I would submit that they've already been drawn. I don't have anything in common anymore with people who are going to vote to withhold resuscitative care from infants who are born alive after an abortion. That happened last week. Every Democrat in the Senate voted in lockstep to deny infants who are born alive after abortions resuscitative care. Let me get this straight. Just to clarify, any illegal that jumps the border and comes over in the United States in the midst of transition or goes into labor and shows up at an emergency room, regardless of their ability to pay, regardless of their citizenship status or whatever the groups are that you can't discriminate against, we have to give them care. but not American citizens who were born alive after an abortion. That's who we're supposed to be dealing with right now. I got nothing to talk about. So I would encourage you folks, instead of wasting your time trying to win hearts and minds out there and maybe trying to have dialogues and discussions with people, screw it. Like, focus your efforts right now on getting your own house in order. I'm looking out right now on the garden that we just plowed up. I haven't planted yet because we're not quite there at frost season. But you want to have some victory or make a stand against what is happening right now, grow your own food. Because I'm here to tell you the only way that this stuff is going to get better is with all-out war, or the government essentially folding because it lacks tax revenue. I'm not excited about it, but I'm a realist, man. And if I see a patient's vital signs going, and I see that pulse pressure going wide, I know I'm headed for trouble. So in many ways, the United States is kind of like a patient who's on life support, or a patient who's just sustained a major trauma and who we're losing. And I look at the trends. You look at the trends. When you hear people talking about this, fatalistically, realistically, at Little League games, and at the checkout at grocery stores, don't lie to yourself. It's coming. And don't be wasting your time on stuff that doesn't matter. You're not going to fix this. I'm going to tell this right now. Like, I'm still all about trying to redress our grievances peacefully, but this is beyond the amends of the reach of the ballot box. Why is that? Because we have massive voter fraud. And when you have people in this country who are voting who are not citizens, I would call that an illegitimate election. You want legitimacy in elections? You're going to have voter ID. And that presents in itself its own set of identity problems. Collection of data. More government control. Democrats just got their little gun control bill passed in the House. The president said he's going to veto it, that it won't go anywhere, hopefully in the Senate. But I want you to consider something. We have more gun control passed in 2 months of the Democrats having one House of Congress than we had in the entire span of President Obama's 8-year stint. Things are not okay. Things are not good. Just because President Trump's in office, like, instead of viewing this as, okay, it's time to coast, you should be accelerating your preps right now. We've got time. A little bit of time. The run-up to the election in 2020 is going to be a fireworks show, I think. Either way, regardless of what the outcome is, I have zero confidence in the federal government. What the federal government has shown me is that it exists to consolidate its own power and to further its own interests. And so I think that there are 2 ways forward for us here at this point. One is going to be a complete breakdown in rule of law where people just rebel. And unfortunately, I think it's going to turn into the left conducting raids of terror. That's what they do. It'll be them showing up, for instance, like at the congressional baseball game. They've already shown you that they're willing to shoot at their political opponents. It'll be a violent part. One half of the equation will be violent. Here's the other half of the equation. The other half is going to be continued legislation. They have recognized that they can't win in a firefight against us. In a straight-up match-on-match with strength, force, and skill at arms, they know they're not going to win. So what they decide to do at this point is to be a little bit more subversive, a little bit more Fabian socialist style. So they're going to continue with the legislation. They're going to continue with trying to get things passed. And they're going to continue to use the vehicle of government to do it. So the only way that you can reasonably, peacefully, civilly disobey is to decrease your overall payment of taxes. One of the ways that you can easily do this that's perfectly legal at this point is to grow your own food. Even if you're on 1/8 of an acre, even if all you've got is a patio, you can do something. You can grow a tomato plant. You're going to have to, guys. Like, you want to make a stand here? Grow your victory garden. In World War II, it was against the Axis. Now the Axis is in D.C. You want to make a statement? Grow your own food. It'll decrease the amount of taxes that you're paying. And the way that I view it, starve the beast, man. Civil disobedience. In Illinois, as I understand it, there's been back and forth between downstate and central Illinois versus, of course, Chirac and all of their gun control initiatives. So, of course, Chicago starts with their nonsense that they put through in both the House and the Senate in the Illinois legislature. Central and downstate moved to nullify. And then what happens is Chicago comes back and says nullification is disallowed. How are you going to disallow that, Chicago? You don't have enough state police to send to central and downstate. You don't have enough people to enforce your laws. That's the bottom line, guys. They're going to do this either the hard way or the soft way. And their soft way only works if you and I comply. By the way, it only works if their little minions get paid. And how do they get paid? With tax revenue. So the way that you can starve them is to deny them of tax revenue, which means don't buy stuff you don't need. Don't consume what you don't need. Don't buy stuff that you don't need. Grow what you can. And this helps you in two ways. It makes you less dependent upon them, and it starves them of the blood that they function on. I am not going to waste my time anymore talking with people who clearly have demonstrated to me that they're not my countrymen. I'm sorry, but if you don't recognize our founding documents as the supreme law of the land under Scripture, clearly, by the way, our founders were not just like random agnostics. Our founders recognized that their laws were derived from the Judeo-Christian line of thought and the Judeo-Christian ethic. If you don't come to some sort of agreement with me on basic morality, and yeah, that would include giving resuscitative care to an infant who you tried to murder, I'm done talking. I don't have anything to talk with you about. And the churches are a big part of this because they're deceiving people. The churches are pushing this line of socialism, and they've been infiltrated for a very, very long time. And they're hemorrhaging members right now because people are looking at their Bibles, they're reading what their Bibles say, they're listening to what their pulpits are teaching, and they're saying, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I can't sit here and continue to give you my tithes to show up and participate in your meetings that go against what I'm reading. So given the choice, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to sit home, or they're going to start their own little small gatherings of believers. And what I'm seeing around here, in my neck of the woods, is that people are forming their own little gatherings of believers that are like-minded. They're drilling together. They're practicing together. They're talking about growing food together. What can be grown here? Do you have any tips for this? Listen, like just because gardening isn't sexy and like, yeah, light yourself on fire and rappel out of buildings, don't think that it's not an integral part of their overall resistance. Okay? Like the Democrats have hijacked, and these like libtard Antifa people have hijacked this notion of resistance. Okay? Like we're resisting the overall tyranny that they're trying to implement. Okay? And they want your guns. Don't lie to yourself, and don't sit there and freaking tell me that they're not coming for them. Like, which article should I cite? Which picture should I put up to show you that, yeah, they do want to come for your guns? But what are they going to use to come and get them? The vehicle of government. Governments only function on tax revenue. Every day I wake up and I look at the news and I know that I'm going to be less and less free as long as these people are up in D.C. So I'm going to make preparations on my end to be self-sufficient whenever the lights go out. They only function on tax revenue and electricity, man. You starve them of both of them, they got nothing. They got nothing. Things, but guys, you know, like I'm reaching people. We're reaching people, waking people up. People are starting to see now that there's no parlaying with these loons. They are wicked people. And unfortunately, a lot of them live next to us. And some of them are even in our own families. But you're not going to convince them with words. All we've done is talk and let them carve up our rights for years. I'm not talking with them anymore. Lines are being drawn. You get in your corner. I'm in mine. When the bell rings, we'll come out. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off, and I'll see y'all later.